SANFL also delivers the nation's preeminent men's and women's state league competitions. SANFL is a 50% joint venture partner with SACA in the Adelaide Oval, where we are today. And Darren is an alternate director to its board and member of its committees. Darren has broad management and leadership experience and joined the South Australian National Football League as CEO in October 2020. Previous roles include General Manager, Operations and Commercial, Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority. He was General Manager of SANFL, General Manager of Football and Corporate Operations from 2009 to 2012, and CEO of the Glenelg Football Club. Who's a Glenelg fan here? I know we have some. No. Colin, did I see your hand raised then? Yeah, excellent. Darren holds a Masters of Business Administration with the University of South Australia, a degree in Exercise Sports Science, and is a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. A league player himself with the West Adelaide Football Club, Darren's strong passion for the game and belief in the opportunities it provides young people was a key reason for his desire to lead and serve the league and broader football community in South Australia. He enjoys keeping fit, coaching junior sport and playing golf. So we have a Rotary Golfing Fellowship that we'll have to introduce you to. So with that, I would like you all to welcome Darren to give us a presentation. And because I've got the podium while Darren's coming up here, I just want, I don't know if all of you know, but my daughter is actually a captain of an SANFL women's football team, the Woodville West Torrens. And I was going to wear one of her Guernseys today, but I'll just leave it here, Darren, if that's all right, just to show you you're with family here.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here. It's a great venue, and for the guests visiting from interstate and overseas, welcome to the greatest stadium in the world. Pretty passionate about that. As was said, I spent nearly 8 years here, from the development of the new stadium to developing the AOSMA team, of which Jason Bird was who's one of the Rotarians here, and had some wonderful times, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on. I thought the most appropriate thing today was just to cover a little bit of my journey over the years, and some of the challenges that we've had along the way, and some of the memorable experiences. Cover off football in this state. So for those international guests, in Australia, football was traditionally played state by state, and there was no national competition until about 1986, I think it came in, when the Sydney Swans, South Melbourne went to Sydney, and then the Brisbane Bears joined, and gradually the competition became national, with the Adelaide Football Club joining in 1991, and then later Port Adelaide in 1996. So prior to that, each state ran football as they wished, and we had a league competition in each state, which was the pinnacle, if you like. With the AFL forming, the state league here has continued to flourish. And we've been really, really mindful. We've done it better than any other state in Australia at keeping a state league competition going at the highly professional level that it is. And we're really, really proud of that. Western Australia is the other state that's done something similar. We don't believe quite as well. Although we are playing them in a state game here on Friday, we'll find out whether we can still maintain that status. So, but not only is our competition important, as was said earlier, we're responsible for making sure football across this state is in a healthy position. We work closely with the AFL to make sure that every young and old person these days can be involved with our great game, whether that's as a player, an umpire, a coach, a volunteer. And being National Volunteers Week this week, I should acknowledge all the wonderful volunteers in our game, and without them, our game wouldn't exist at any level. And then finally, I thought I'd take the opportunity, and with the Premier speaking, I think, next meeting, I'll let him take a bit more of the glory for this, but a little bit on Gather Round, the AFL Gather Round, the success of that, how it came to be, and what wonderful opportunities we have going forward in that space. Golf was mentioned. I won't talk about it much, but I will highlight that I was on the 12th hole when Chase nailed his hole-in-one. But I must confess that I did keep my beer in my hand. Working in stadium for a long time and around sport, I just couldn't bring myself to throw it, a full can of beer onto the fairway. But what an amazing event! Live Golf on the back of Gather Round is some amazing opportunity for this state to showcase itself over a 2-week period, and I'm sure the Premier will speak about that next week. My journey, born and bred in South Australia, grew up in Merino, was born in Glenelg where I now live, and went to Auskick Primary School, Brighton High School, and moved out of that area, but then have come back. I studied at University of South Australia down at the Underage campus, which is now a housing development and a school, Catholic school down there. Did my sports science degree, absolutely loved it, had no idea what I wanted to do. But I did that because it was sport, I loved my sport. And even at the end of it, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I was lucky enough to specialise in junior coaching, and I got a role at the SANFL, my first job, where I looked after basically participation. I was out in schools every day, running coaching clinics, driving, promoting the game and trying to get as many young people playing the game as possible. We established Auskick back in 1992-93, and then from there I've been able to develop my career through football in a number of roles at the SANFL, studied an MBA, and then I went on halfway through that to take on the role as CEO of the Glenelg Footy Club at age 28. I thought I knew a bit about football at that point, which was probably fair. I learned very, very quickly I needed to learn a lot more about business, about politics, about governance, and about re-establishing the Glenelg Football Club. To be honest, at that point in time was a basket case. So we had a situation there where we had a divided board, and many people that are in boards in this room will understand you don't go too far if you're not on the same page. We had a club that was financially in a bit of strife, despite the fact that we just built a new function centre down there, and I came in right at the end and was able to open that, but that certainly put the club in a challenging financial position. And we set about devising a plan that we could turn that footy club around, and I'm really proud that over that 7-year period that I was there, we turned the club around. Off-field, we made a profit every year until the final year, and that was when we redeveloped the licence facility, and our gaming facility was out of action for a while. We developed a great relationship in our south-east zone where many of our young players came from. And in the final year, 2008, we didn't win, but we actually played off in the grand final against Central District at Footy Park, which was a fine achievement. And one of the most memorable moments that I've had from that journey was in 2008. I think it was the week after the June long weekend. It happened to be an AFL free weekend in Adelaide. Glenelg were playing Sturt. Glenelg were top. Sturt was second. We got lucky with the weather. It was, I think, 22 degrees in mid-June. And we had a crowd of 11,973 people turn up at Glenelg Oval for a SANFL game. And at that point in time, the average crowds were probably around 2,500-3,000 people for a game. But that was I put that down to not only obviously being able to turn the footy club around and work with the board and get a really competitive football team. We'd done a lot of work over that journey to make sure that every other aspect of the club, membership, sponsorship, engagement with the local community, was done well, and all things came together on that particular day, and we had lineups down Diagonal Road waiting to get into Glenelg Oval, which was not ideal from a consumer experience point of view, but it was a good sign that we were in a pretty good spot. and we won the game even better. Unfortunately, as I said, we didn't win the premiership that year, but when I left and went back to the SANFL, the place was in a really good state. I was then lucky enough to be involved, and it was 2009 I commenced at SANFL as GM of Football and Corporate Operations. And 2009, we remember back, GFC hit, and everyone was very much challenged there. So quickly, I actually went into the role as GM of the State League, and quickly that changed to GM of Football, plus corporate, as we consolidated, as we tried to save money, as we were impacted very severely. And that was at the same time as crowds were dropping off at Football Park, Amy Stadium. Port Adelaide were in significant financial trouble. SANFL owned the licence and they had to bail them out and make sure that they could survive. And there was a discussion about where the future of football was in this state. And the Adelaide Oval decision was made in 2009. And so from that point on, it was very, very difficult to attract people to get back to Football Park for games. So our focus then went to Adelaide Oval, and we spent time consolidating at the SANFL, making sure we get as many kids playing the game as we possibly could, kept Port Adelaide alive, and focused on the future here at Adelaide Oval. And it was a challenging period, but I think we'd all agree now that the move was very, very successful for all parties, and we've now got what we're sitting in today. If you talk about my role here at Adelaide Oval, we had some challenging times, some fun times. A few that stand out was firstly building a team. We started off, we were in, I think I was the 4th or 5th employee of the Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority. We had a little office on the mezzanine floor in the NAB building on King William. Quickly we grew from 5 to 20. I think by the time we got to 30 we had to move offices, and we moved to an office on Grenfell Street, as this facility here was only half built. Not only did we have to build a team, which turned out to 150 to 200 full-time staff with over 1,000 casuals, but we had to build the facility, and we had to build every system into a new business to be ready to run a test match in December 2013. So we were winging it for a while, let me tell you. Andrew Daniels, CEO, myself, we had a chief operating officer who resigned after about 9 months. We didn't replace that role, and I assumed most of those operating duties on top of the commercial role that I'd started with. So we quickly pulled it all together, and we had great delight when we, after the final week, when most people in the organisation lived off about 4 hours sleep a night, we managed to pull off a test match, but an Ashes test match. The eastern stand wasn't built yet. The southern stand, now called the Riverbank stand, was finished just in the nick of time, and we had an amazing test match. We then had to follow that up going into 2014 and make sure the western stand was built. The plan was that we were going to launch the stadium fully complete with a Rolling Stones concert, and some of you may remember half the stage was built, and then the unfortunate incident with Mick Jagger's partner meant that the tour was called off. So as quickly as they put up half the stage, they pulled down half the stage, and we then prepared to host the first showdown between Port Adelaide and the Adelaide Football Club the following week. Luckily enough, the concert was rescheduled in the back half of the year, and we were able to have an amazing event here with the Rolling Stones, which was an amazing event. The other thing that I'm really proud of that we did, amongst other things, is the roof climb here, which we launched in 2015. We spent a lot of our time not worrying so much about event day. For a stadium like this and stadiums all around the world, it's to make it successful, to make it viable. It's the other 330 days where you haven't got major events here, which pays the bills and makes things tick. So we were always looking for ways that we could find other things to use the stadium for. Laura Robinson, who's now working at South Australian Tourism Commission, we set about, the idea of a climb on the roof came about. We went around Australia, looked at all the different options. We did Sydney, we looked at Brisbane, we looked in Melbourne at different tourism options, and we came back and we built a business proposal to put a climb on the roof here at Adelaide Oval. And to date, it's been the single most profitable part of the business here at Adelaide Oval over the journey. Very well put together in the first place, paid itself off in 2.5 years, and even today is continuing to be one of the iconic tourism attractions now in the city of Adelaide, is going great guns. I'm really proud too that stepdaughter, while she's at uni, is actually now one of the roof climb leaders. So she gets up there and has an opportunity to enjoy, earn $1 and showcase Adelaide from a different vantage point. And it's not just about climbing on the roof. Many people may have done it here, but it's about telling the Adelaide story while people are up there. I was never a massive soccer fan, or football for those people that have followed the game worldwide. But to have A-League soccer here and to experience the A-League Grand Final in 2016 between Adelaide United and the win they had over the Western Sydney Wanderers was probably one of the best sporting events that I've ever been involved with in my life. The atmosphere was unbelievable. We had people on the roof doing the roof climb who were worried about the actual roof coming off the grandstand, with the noise was that loud when Adelaide United scored their third goal. The chanting for the entire time, the stadium was on its was just bouncing, and despite having to replace a few chairs from a few of the untidy opposition supporters, at the end of it, it was an amazing event. And I probably never thought I'd say that about soccer, but it was just enormous, and I was really, really lucky to be involved with that. I now have a 9-year-old son who does play AFL, but he plays soccer, and so I actually get involved a little bit more there. There you go. The other one I just thought I'd touch on is, for those that know anything about boxing, you know more than I did at the time, but we had the Anthony Mundine, Danny Green boxing match out here in the middle of Adelaide Oval in 2017. Today, to say that was an experience is an understatement. I think we had half the underbelly magnates, you might call them, who were still alive, here at the Oval that night. We had about 600 people in round tables on the Oval, dining, with a food and beverage package. I think there was about 30,000 in the stadium. There were 10 round boxing matches, and the last one was the main fight, which was due to come in, I think off memory, it was about 10 o'clock with the main fight was due to start. At 9:30, we've still got 3 of the minor bouts to be completed so we can actually get the main event underway. As you can imagine, people had had a few by this time. The crowd was getting pretty restless, and we had a drinks package on the Oval, which was due to finish at 10:30. I wasn't going to go and tell those people on the Oval that they couldn't have a beer after 10:30. And when I spoke to not Anthony Mundine, Danny Green's manager, who was coordinating the whole event, I said, "Mate, what's going to happen?" He said, "We're going to have to extend the drinks package and someone's going to have to pay." So I remember standing up down at the southern end of the Oval, talking to him. I said, "We've got a problem." I said, "Because we're not cutting it off. We're going to have a ride out here. We've got boxing matches being held at the moment. What are we going to do?" He said he made a phone call, and he said, "I think we're okay." I said, "What do you mean we're okay? We've got 20 minutes now before our main bout's about to start." He said, "No, I reckon we're okay." Anyway, by the time I looked around, the next bout was finished with a technical knockout in the first 30 seconds. The next one came up, I think it lasted about 1.5 minutes in the first round, knockout. And within 10 minutes, we were back on time. I'm not suggesting that boxing's rigged in any way, but it just seemed very incidental, you might say, that after that phone call, things happened pretty quickly. Yeah, certainly interesting. And then following that event, we were downstairs where the change rooms are under the riverbank stand, and we were asked to pay a significant amount of money across to the managers, which was all above board from our end. It was the agreement we had to pay them, and they wanted a certain amount in cash. So, which once again, we checked it all out with our bank, we got all the necessary sign-offs there, no problem. What they did with that was up to them. But it was interesting to stand down there with Danny Green's manager, and then Anthony Mundine's manager came out of the change rooms. This is just after Danny Green had been awarded the fight in probably what you might call dubious circumstances, when everyone else thought that Anthony Mundine had won the event. And Mundine's manager came out, and as he came out of his change room to come and meet with us and sort out the financials, the three referees walked past who had just made the decision to award the fight to Danny Green. Thank goodness we had our main security guy next to us, who was a big guy. If he wasn't there was going to be another boxing bout just happened at the base of the riverbank stand, and I wouldn't want to be one of the referees. So we managed to get away with that one. But certainly you see some amazing stuff, and we were lucky enough to be involved with some terrific things here at Adelaide Oval over the journey. From a SANFL perspective, I was then, after 8 years, was asked to consider about coming back to the SANFL as CEO, and I absolutely jumped at the opportunity to run an organisation that was my first job. Lee Wicker was CEO when I was first appointed, started my career working in the field, and to be able to now come back and run an organisation which I'm so passionate about, I'm very, very lucky. Amazing team, over 100 staff now. We work across inclusive programs, multicultural, First Nations, women's, which is just growing ridiculously quickly. And we've even now got walking footy for the older generation to still be involved from a playing point of view in the game. And it's just a wonderful team and experience we've got. Where's our business at? Certainly challenged during COVID, and I took over at the end of 2020, which was a very, very challenging time. Most of our staff had been stood down for a period of time during 2020. Some had lost their jobs, and we had to basically get through the next 18 months and then rebuild the business. Pleased to say at the moment we're debt-free. We've got our clubs who are in a really healthy position. We've got one we're working closely with, and we've got a very, very vibrant workplace. Participation rates are really strong, over 54,000 players playing a competitive game, registered players, nearly 12,000 Auskickers involved with the game. Women's footy's grown from, only 5 years ago we had 3,000 participants. We've now got about 12,000 participants. We've got a very strong SANFL W competition, and that's getting better and better every year. And overall, football is in a really, really strong position. There are some challenges, no doubt about that. Environment's a key one. We still have issues of poor behaviour from parents. We still have coaches not doing the right thing in some instances, but we're making really good progress. Umpiring is a real critical element for us, and the last thing we need is umpires being abused by parents or umpires, etc. And we're really passionate about making a difference in that space. So a really important focus. Talent's really important, making sure that we give our best young players in this state the opportunity to play at the highest level they possibly can, and quality coaching together with quality facilities is really important. I won't talk to you about facilities. I could talk about that for about an hour, but facilities is one of our biggest challenges at the moment. With the growth of female footy, we need to improve the facilities we've got across the state, and we need to find more ovals, and that's something that we're working very, very hard at the moment. Just quickly, I know I'm getting the hurry up here. Gather round. As I said, I'll let the Premier talk about this more next week, but an enormous success and what it's meant for football in this state is really important. Obviously, economically great for the state. But football puts a real focus on our sport. The fact that we've now got 3 years to utilise gather round, to grow participation, to help coaches get better, to grow umpiring participation, and to really drive our game forward is really, really important. And I should really compliment the Premier as well, because he was instrumental in securing that event for South Australia, working closely with stakeholders, SANFL, the Adelaide Oval Stadium Management Authority, the 2 AFL clubs here, in making sure that event came to South Australia, because it was pretty much locked in to go to New South Wales. He managed to wrestle it away from them and get it back here. And then we did such a collectively good job to run the event that to be able to secure it for another 3 years was just simply amazing. So on that note, I'll leave it there. Thanks for your time, and look forward to coming back again at some stage and having a further chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Darren, before you go, we've got a few minutes for maybe 1 or 2 questions. So has anyone got any questions? I'm sure we do. Helen. Okay.
Thank you. It's probably more of a statement rather than a question. So thank you for talking to us today. It is on. Sorry. I had a brother-in-law. My brother-in-law came from Sydney for a couple of games. He's a long-term Carlton supporter, so they went to 3 or 4 games, and he said that Sydney, New South Wales could not have put on the event that was put on here. He said they just don't have the infrastructure of the grounds and the games and that sort of thing for AFL in Sydney. So, job well done. He was very, very impressed.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, and support that wholeheartedly. That was a major pitch, in fact. We met in a hotel room on the Friday before the AFL Grand Final, called a meeting by the Premier, and the message was how are we going to work together on the day of AFL Grand Final to lobby the influential people at the AFL to make sure it comes to Adelaide. And the key was we could do it well. Because we have significant control over football in this state. We said we'd bring all football to a halt, wouldn't play any footy over gather round, so everyone can get involved with the event. They couldn't do that in Sydney. Sydney just would continue to go on. Our facilities here are better, and we just felt that Sydney you'd lose traction. You wouldn't actually get any cut through. They wouldn't get the support, and to have over 200,000 people support the event here in coming to games was just enormous.
Florian, did you have a question? No? No? Okay, all right. I wanted to ask you, if I can ask a question, if no one else does, around diversity, equity and inclusion, and about a peace poll going in at Adelaide Oval, which I think all ties in nicely. I know with SANFL has now got a diversity and inclusion team, which my daughter helps coach, and which is really fantastic. So I just wondered if you could touch on how those sorts of things are going in SANFL.
Yeah, I can. I mean, we're very much committed to making sure that our game can touch every part of our community and give everyone an opportunity to be involved. And that's why we have run specific inclusion programs. We have competition for those that are less able. We have multicultural programs. We're really focused on trying to provide opportunities for new arrivals to join in and be part of our game. Specific First Nations programs. We run a program up in the APY lands, which we invest heavily in, and that's not just about football, that's about education and lifestyle and trying to make some change up in that area up there, which is very, very challenging. But overall, women's focus we spoke about before. Really, really important. And then we also deal with, the challenges, as I mentioned earlier, about environment and teaching our young players the values of sport, the values of competing in a fair manner, and I think we're starting to win the battle there and getting far improved behaviours, not only by the players themselves, but the parents and those involved with clubs. So we'll keep trying in that area.
I think we've got time for one more question. Laurie.
Because everybody would know what I'm going to ask. I'm a promoter of Rotary, by the way. If you came from the Adelaide Airport, there's a sign up for 100 years. Anyhow, I would like to see, as our club has been having our lunches there for many years, as I've been a member. And I would like to have an area where we could have an area which says Rotary Club of Adelaide, and then get a Rotary Club to look after that area and have a seat there or something like this. I think it's important to promote our club at the Adelaide Oval. I'd like your thoughts.
That's put me on the spot. The easy answer is I'll tell Nick Addison and leave that for him to deal with, since he's the CEO of the Adelaide Open Stadium Mountain Authority. But I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm not sure what discussion has happened over the journey, but yeah, 99 years, 100 years later this year is enormous. You know, we're an organisation ourselves, 146-year-old. We understand the importance of history and recognition. So I'll take it on myself to have a chat with Nick and ask him where things are at there. But look, if something can be done that's appropriate, then it should be looked at.
Okay, thank you so much. Good, you got it in, Laurie. Well done. So Darren, we've got a couple of little gifts to give you. One of them is a Rotary teddy bear, which has been handmade especially for you in not the Glenelg colours, but Eagles colours though. So yeah, it's good. And also a certificate of appreciation. And just so that you know, your attendance here today as a guest speaker has meant we've had more people come than ever before. Than we have had really all year, thanks to all our visiting Rotarians. And that means we've had more donations made today, so thank you so much. So those donations will go towards some of our Rotary community projects. So thank you so much. Rotarians and guests, please stand to thank Darren for his excellent presentation.